Hey friends, welcome back to the NeuroSpicy MomPod, the cozy sensory safe corner of the internet and your newest obsession. I'm Austin Marie, and if you ended up here because your nervous system needed a minute, you are in the right space. This is where we talk about neurodivergence, nervous system regulation, and reparenting ourselves, or honestly, just trying to survive capitalism, trauma, and the group chat. We're here for the big feelings, the pattern recognition, the justice sensitivity, the burnout, and the moments of joy that make your whole body go, oh, okay, I can breathe again. You don't have to be fixed here. You don't have to perform. You don't have to make yourself smaller. You just get to show up exactly as you are. And this is the final episode of Season 3. Before we move on, I just want to pause for a second because this feels like a moment worth honoring. Thank you truly to everyone who has listened, shared, sent messages, sat with me in these conversations, and grown alongside me this season. I don't take that lightly, and this podcast has been shaped in real time, and your presence is part of why it exists. And I want to thank the incredible guests who trusted me with their stories, their knowledge, and their nervous systems. Your voices expanded this space in ways I couldn't have done alone, and I'm deeply grateful for each of you. This season has been a collective effort, a shared container, and I just needed to say that out loud. Thank you. So let's get into it. I would love to name something here first, and I want to be very intentional about it. This conversation is not just about parenting, because so many of you listening are not parents at all, or you are parents, but you're also still very much parenting yourself, the child who grew up undiagnosed, misunderstood, or constantly trying to be normal. This episode is for the people who were called dramatic, sensitive, defiant, lazy, gifted but unmotivated, anxious, difficult, or whose report card always stated too chatty. For the people who learned early how to disappear, comply, achieve, perform, or numb out just to survive. And it's also for those of you who are raising neurodivergent kids, not because that's the center of the story, but because it lives alongside it, because many of us are doing both at the same time. So when I talk about neurodivergence today, I'm talking about all of us. For a long time, neurodivergence was framed almost entirely through a medical and behavioral lens. The dominant question wasn't, what does this nervous system need? It was, how do we make this person easier to manage? Early research focused heavily on deficits, what was delayed, what was impaired, what didn't fit the norm. But over the last few decades, something important has shifted, not fast enough, not cleanly, but meaningfully. Researchers began listening, really listening to autistic and neurodivergent adults, not just parents, not just clinicians, but the people living inside these nervous systems. And when that happened, the story got more complex and more human. What we now understand is that neurodivergence isn't about being broken. It's about difference in nervous system processing, differences in how information is sensed, integrated, and responded to. Neurodivergent brains tend to process experiences more globally and more intensely. Sensory input, emotional meaning, memory, and cognition are often more tightly linked. That means the world comes in louder, brighter, heavier, and more meaningful. This is why things that seem small to others can feel overwhelming, and why things that feel meaningful can feel life-giving. From a neuroscience perspective, this shows up in differences across multiple systems: sensory processing, emotional regulation, attention, and threat detection. It's not one autism center or ADHD switch in the brain. It's the way networks talk to each other. And here's where justice sensitivity comes in. Many neurodivergent people show heightened sensitivity to fairness, inconsistency, and harm. This isn't a moral superiority thing. It's a nervous system thing. Pattern recognition means you don't just see isolated events. You see systems. You see trajectories. You see when something doesn't add up. And when your nervous system is wired to notice threat and inconsistency, that information doesn't stay abstract. It lands in the body. Chronic exposure to that kind of awareness, especially without language or support, keeps the nervous system in survival mode. that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. This is where so many late diagnosed adults end up. Burned out, disconnected, ashamed, wondering why life feels so hard when they're doing everything right. But the problem was never a lack of resilience, it was a lack of context. When people finally get language, words like masking, burnout, sensory overwhelm, nervous system regulation, there's often a period of destabilization. That's not regression, that's awareness landing. And awareness, while necessary, is heavy. It strips away numbness. It dissolves old coping strategies. It asks you to feel what you survived. That's why so many people can feel worse before they feel better. Not because healing is failing, but because the nervous system is finally being listened to. And this is where I want to zoom out. Because while it can feel like we're going backwards culturally, politically, socially, there has been real progress in how we understand neurodivergence. We have language now. We have research that centers the lived experience. We have growing recognition that forcing people to comply does not create well-being. In psychology and education, there's increasing emphasis on regulation over compliance, on safety over control, on strengths over suppression. This didn't come from institutions suddenly becoming enlightened. It came from people, adults who spoke up, advocates who documented, teachers and therapists who kept learning even when systems lagged behind. And that matters because understanding changes nervous systems. Language reduces shame. Context restores self-trust. And when we heal, whether we're healing ourselves or healing while caring for others, we are not doing it in isolation. We are expanding what's possible. We are not healing in spite of the world. We are healing for the world. There is a lot of activation right now, a lot of grief, a lot of rage, a lot of fear. And for those of us with strong justice sensitivity, especially neurodivergent people, it can feel like we're watching the world move backwards at a terrifying speed. It can feel like everything we've worked so hard to name, understand, and protect is under threat. And there's this pressure, subtle but consistent, to numb out, to disconnect, to stop feeling so much. But here's the thing I want to say clearly. This isn't actually new. The harm isn't new. What is new is our language. What's new is our awareness. What's new is that we can name what's happening inside our bodies instead of blaming ourselves for it. And that matters more than we sometimes realize. For so long, neurodivergent people were told that the problem was us, our sensitivity, our intensity, our inability to let things go, our refusal to comply quietly. But now we understand something we didn't always have words for. We understand masking. We understand burnout. We understand our nervous system regulation and our trauma. And we are no longer staying silent. We are no longer choosing other people's comfort or politeness over our existence. We are no longer contorting ourselves to be easier to swallow while harm continues unchallenged. And with that understanding comes a strange, painful, necessary phase because awareness doesn't immediately feel better. It can often feel worse. When you stop disassociating, you feel everything. When you unmask, you feel exposed. When you start telling the truth, you feel vulnerable. But that doesn't mean healing isn't working. It means your nervous system is waking up. And that brings me to the heart of this episode, that we are not healing in spite of the world, that we are healing for it, especially for those of us who are healing while raising neurodivergent children. If that's you, I just want to take a quick moment because you are holding something incredibly precious. You are holding children whose nervous systems are still forming, children who feel deeply, children who notice patterns, who are sensitive to tone, fairness, truth, and inconsistency. And you're trying to protect them from a world that often doesn't know how to hold that kind of depth. Of course you're scared. Of course you worry. Of course you feel the weight of that responsibility. But I want to remind you of something powerful. A mother's love has always been a disruptive force. It is because of parents, especially mothers, that things have changed. It is because parents documented, because parents advocated, because parents refused to accept harm as normal, because parents demanded better. It's because of you that schools have had to listen. It's because of you that accommodations exist. It's because of you that teachers sought more education. And it's because of you that therapists updated their frameworks. Change didn't come from comfort, it came from persistence. And let's ground this in psychology for a second, because this isn't just emotional truth. It's nervous system reality. Human nervous systems are shaped by their environment. When a child grows up in a system that misunderstands them, their body adapts to survive. That can look like masking, like hypervigilance, like shutting down. But when a child grows up with language for their experience, with adults who understand regulation, sensory needs, and emotional safety, something different happens. Shame decreases, self trust increases, capacity expands. And we are seeing that shift slowly, imperfectly, in classrooms, not because systems suddenly became kind, but because parents, teachers, specialists, and therapists kept learning, kept listening, kept changing. And this is where I want to speak to those of you who are healing your inner child at the same time you're parenting. That is not weakness. That is an act of courage. You are breaking cycles while standing inside them. You are learning regulation while teaching it. You are choosing presence in a world that rewards disassociation. And yes, that is exhausting, but it is also how gentler futures are built. Before I close, I want to talk about what we can do because agency belongs here too. When the world feels loud and frightening, our nervous systems look for something solid to hold on to. So let's start with what's close, what's doable, and what actually makes a difference. Read to your kids if you have them, and read for yourself if you don't. Seek out authors who are writing about neurodivergence from the inside. Neurodivergent writers telling their stories, naming their experiences, and offering language that feels accurate and affirming. Fill your shelves, your feeds, and your ears with voices that reflect you back to yourself. Stay informed, gently and intentionally. We don't need to flood our nervous systems with constant breaking news to be responsible. We do need context, history, and truth. Follow journalists, educators, and advocates who are grounded, accountable, and rooted in lived experience. Support other neurodivergent people, especially out loud. Many of my guests this season have their own podcasts, projects, and platforms. Go listen, share their work, and let their language shape yours. When we surround ourselves with affirming voices, we start to expect that affirmation everywhere. And this is where mutual aid and community care come in because none of us are meant to do this alone. Mutual aid doesn't have to look dramatic or organized to matter. It can look like sharing resources, checking in on someone who's struggling, offering rides, meals, childcare swaps, notes from meetings, or simply your presence. It can look like donating when you can, redistributing when you're able, or amplifying asks when you're not. Community care is nervous system care. It's the recognition that regulation doesn't just happen individually, it happens relationally. When we create a web of support, instead of expecting ourselves to be endlessly self sufficient, we make survival more possible for everyone, especially those who are most vulnerable. And from there, this expands outward. That might look like showing up to a school board meeting or a city council meeting. It might look like going to a protest with accommodations. I want to name that explicitly. I've been able to participate mainly because of friends who have helped me plan, pace myself, and protect my nervous system while doing it. And if you don't have these resources, capacity, or safety to do those things right now, that's okay. Reposting matters. Sharing language matters. Calling and emailing your representatives matter. Documenting matters. Your voice matters. Collective change has never been about one heroic person doing everything. It's always been about people moving together. We've all seen this story before, the ones we grew up with. The ants moving together against the grasshoppers, the fish swimming down against the net, the moment when the power shifts because the many decide to protect the most vulnerable. When we move in love, when we wrap those who are most at risk in the middle, when we refuse to disappear, that's how things bend in the right direction. And now, before we end this season, I want to talk about joy briefly because it belongs here. Joy is not denial. Joy is regulation. Joy is what gives nervous systems the capacity to keep caring without collapsing. Joy is how we stay human in inhumane conditions. Not performative joy, not forced optimism, but the quiet kind. The embodied kind, the kind that says, I am still alive in this body. So as we end this season, I just want to offer this reminder. You are not too sensitive for this world. You are sensitive because the world needs people who feel. And the work you are doing, healing yourself, unmasking, learning new language, staying awake, and staying soft, it matters, even when it feels invisible, especially when it feels invisible. If this is where your time with me ends today, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for growing with me. Season 3, woo! Thank you for letting these conversations live in your body and in your life. And if you want to help this little podcast grow in a way that actually aligns with our values, there are a few simple things that really do make a difference. If you're able to, like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Please leave a review if that feels accessible. Those things help the show reach people who are still searching for language. But most of all, send this episode to a friend, someone you love, someone who feels deeply, someone who needs to know they're not broken or alone. That's how advocacy spreads. That's how kindness spreads, quietly, relationally, from one nervous system to another. Season 4 will begin in March, and I'm genuinely so excited for what's coming next. I'm also really proud to be closing Season 3 with honesty, growth, and care. So for now, let this season rest and let your nervous system rest. We are not healing in spite of the world. Remember, we are healing for the world. And for those of you who like to stay for the journal prompts, stick around. We'll do that together next. If not, I'll see you next season. Ta-ta! If you're staying for the journal prompt, I want to remind you of this first. There is no right way to do this. You don't have to write anything down. You can just listen to it. You can let it sit in your body. You can pause this and come back another day. This is an invitation, not an assignment. So when you're ready, here's the prompt. Where in my life am I choosing comfort for others over honesty for myself? And what would it feel like to shift that even a little? I'm going to read it one more time. Where in my life am I choosing comfort for others over honesty for myself? And what would it feel like to shift that even a little? If that feels too big, you can soften it down to some of these questions, like where do I feel myself shrinking or going quiet? What does my body need in those moments? What kind of honesty feels safe enough right now? There's no pressure to act on this, no pressure to change anything today. Just notice and gather information. Awareness is not a demand, it's a beginning. And remember, I'm always here to chat or bounce ideas around with you in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourself and your nervous systems. I'll see you next season. Ta-ta!